Tonight, I am here with the Colorado GT2 group. They are a collaboration of advocates for secondary gifted students spanning across 9 districts in the state of Colorado. I am excited to hear of all the wonderful programs that they are offering in their districts and some of the great systems they have put in place to serve secondary gifted students in Colorado. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Marla. She's going to give us a brief introduction about how it all started. So Marla, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you have the floor and the screen.
Oh, wow. Thanks for inviting us tonight. This is a very exciting opportunity to be able to speak with parents and educators across Colorado. So thank you, CAGT, for inviting us. It's a large group, and so our screen is up, but I quickly want to introduce everybody and if who's on tonight. We have on my screen, I see Jen Gottschalk up first, and she's from Douglas County, and she has many, many skills. Plus she is an independent fiction writer. And I can't remember, Jen, what your nom de plume is?
Yeah, Jenna Lincoln. My pen name is Jenna Lincoln. But I know some of y'all from this community because I got to talk about writing 9 months ago, Miranda, but thanks for the intro, Marla. I appreciate that.
And so she has great stuff coming through. Next on my screen is Rachel Stuzman out of DPS. And again, DPS right now, you guys, has got some seriously amazing things. And they actually, some of the stuff that they did kickstarted a lot of us off into a different realm down advanced learning plans. So, and Rachel has a plethora of knowledge being a secondary AP social studies teacher, plus an expert in a lot of problem-based learning. Next on my screen is Michael Chamberlain, who is out of the Colorado Springs area, which has been delightful because of the fact that it's tying some of our farther reaches away together. And he also brings a wealth of knowledge into us Michael, you're an English teacher, right?
No, I'm gifted resource teacher, actually.
Gifted resource, yes. But at one time, were you English? See, you know, we just have so many people going on.
Well, I'm certified in English and science and math and a bunch of things, so yes.
Old school license. So, and then down on the bottom of my screen, I've got Connie Brown. And Connie Brown used to work with me in the Jeffco Public Schools, and she was a middle school English teacher for many years. She has retired and has gone on, and she has just, will have a book out this spring based upon all of her experiences in the gifted classroom for many years, from Socrates to STEAM, advocacy for gifted students. Did I do that one right, Connie?
Student agency fuels potential is the second part. Yeah, from Socrates to STEAM. You got that part right.
So
thank you.
So essentially what we have here is we have a huge wealth of knowledge, both in the classroom and outside the classroom, and they're all advocating for gifted students at all the time. And so to get myself back on track, which is hard to do, what I wanted to, we'll get started on our presentation is that somewhere we're an advocacy group for secondary gifted students, and we're advocating for more than just AP and IB programming. We are a grassroots organization. We are not a nonprofit because we all talked about that, and that involves money. And so we're like, no, we're just gonna be grassroots. And we definitely are collaborative across the state because we have an email list that every so often we send out emails to, and it is definitely both sides of the mountain range. It is up and down I-25, I-70, plains, mountains, all of those organizations. And one of our goals is to definitely support and help smaller school districts who don't have as many resources available, or that gifted and talented resource teacher is wearing so many hats, it's hard to put together some material. So we're trying to share materials with them as well. So here's our huge group. We presented at NAGC this fall on our collaboration that we've done and encouraging other states to pick up and do this as well. And Leanne Cook is down in Elizabeth, and she focuses a ton right now on internships and mentorships for students, for gifted students. And the experiences the kids are having in those are just phenomenal and life-changing. Jason, I think, is gonna, he's also, Shelly, did I miss you somewhere? Oh, sorry, I forgot Shelly. I don't see on my screen. Sorry, Shelly. Shelly Ruffner is out of Fort Collins, and Shelly and Jason have a phenomenal program going on up there, and they have advocated and put together the programming that allows for a GT endorsement to go on student transcripts because of the program that they put together. So again, just amazing things going on across the state of Colorado at the secondary level. And that's our whole goal when we meet, is to share out. So as you listen to us, to give you some focus, what are the types of gifted programming, connections, and innovations are happening in your child's high school? What questions could you ask during an information night or coffee talk with an administrator? Okay. For GT facilitators and teachers, what GT2 resources might support your work with gifted and high school students right now? How might you get involved in with this group, or encourage others to get involved? And if we have any high school students on, what is making you curious? What might you ask or advocate for your high school experience that would help you grow your strength and passion areas? And we will talk about the gifted student group that we have, or we're like partners with, and how you can get involved with them as well. Okay. So we adapted our presentation from our NAGC 21 presentation. And so tonight we're just going to focus on our origin story and our mission, limiting the district highlights for the sake of time, but you can get to this little bit.ly here, and you can then get to our presentation and our other information. And at any time, you know, this spring or whatever, if you have questions, you can absolutely contact any of the people who are presenting tonight, and we'd be happy to connect with you or help you find some resources as you move forward in your journey through secondary gifted education. Okay, so basically how GT2 began is that Leanne and I worked together in Jeffco, and I was new to the gifted department in a sense. I'd had my endorsement and all those things, and Leanne had been working in gifted education for more years than most people teach. So we were both secondary teachers, both secondary women, in a field where there tends to be a little bit more men at the secondary level. So we hung out, and she became kind of my mentor, and we started going to trainings and conferences, and essentially our personalities are such that I've never met a roadblock that I'm not willing to take down to make it easier for the next person. And Leanne Cook has never met a roadblock. She's unable to find a way around. I mean, it's amazing. Okay. And especially if there's coffee involved, she will get around whatever roadblock to get to that coffee. So when we get together, all sorts of goofy stuff starts to happen, and we start planning, and you know, there's always laughter, there's always chocolate, always coffee. Always going to be coffee for Leanne. And Leanne's a fabulous baker, so if we're lucky, pie shows up. And my favorite thing to do in the world in education is to have a whiteboard and colored markers and let Leanne go. She just starts brainstorming stuff, and I love to whiteboard her out. It's just so fascinating to listen to her. So during one of our sessions that we were, you know, changing the world and conquering it, essentially, I kept asking her, you know, when we go to these conferences and all this training, you know, why are there so few secondary sessions at these GT conferences? Because half of our gifted students are in secondary. They're in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. And so, but most of the presentations were all about elementary kids. And we know parents are passionate about that, but they don't stop being GT once they hit those areas. So we came up with this idea of, let's go and try to gather more people and see who else is out there like us that are looking for these kind of secondary topics. And so we presented at the 2017-18 CAGT, and we called it the CAGT Secondary Summit presentation. And some of you guys know Terry Bradley, who's amazing, and the work she was doing at Fairview. She talked about that. Leanne and I talked about what we had been doing. And then Shelly, who's on here also, came in and talked about this GT endorsement up at Fort Collins. And so this was pretty radical and kind of amazing. We had 65 people in attendance. We gathered all their thoughts. We put up, you know, big sheets of white paper and said, you know, what are the most important topics that need to be thought of and discussed around gifted students? And I mean, people were deeply engaged, very passionate, and wanted to connect more. So what we did is I created a website because, hey, let's just focus on secondary stuff. And let's see if I can get us out there and back. So this is our website. It's Gifted and Talented Secondary Perspective. You can just Google it and it'll come up for you. And so we just have on it all of these thoughts that we were thinking. We have all of these lists. So you can go to acceleration, and then we just have a ton of resources here for people. Because again, we know that the smaller schools don't necessarily, in smaller districts, have time to put this together. So we tried to create resources that will make it easier for them to, you know, get to whatever they need to. These affective needs, you know, what is executive function? That's not a topic before the last couple of years that was really talked about at the secondary level, but it really is a part of the secondary level and always has been. So again, putting resources together that fit into the secondary realm, because now we have kids traveling to 6 different teachers, having to juggle all these assignments, all that stuff. So what does that mean? So we put all of this together. It's all about secondary kids. You're welcome, you know, to come use these resources. You know, if you have suggestions for others that are great, please go ahead and send them to us. You can hit our contact information there. Have people, you know, once a month, somebody says, oh, you know, can I get onto your email list? We don't sell your email list. It's just, we use it for this. I try to blind carbon copy whenever I can, when I remember. And we just send out information to people and encourage them to connect or think about different things. Like this fall, last year, there was a bunch of legislation that came through that will impact secondary gifted learners. So that's the kind of stuff. Okay, so there's us. Oh, we made a lot of connections with secondary GT advocates that first year. And then what we realized, in order to get everybody in the room again and stuff, we kind of worked the rest of that 18-year working on getting, building some relationships with some folks we didn't know very well. And then we had a great time. In 1819, we started doing visits, and the first one we hosted in Jeffco, and we had all these kind of workshops and folks come in that talk about some of the innovations and programming that they put together for secondary students around the state. And then we went to Cherry Creek High School, then we went to Castleview, and Castleview is where things got really interesting. Actually, Jeffco got really interesting because Brian Weaver from DPS, who worked at DPS at that time, texted and said, hey, I'm bringing students. And we were all like, really? Seriously? We can't cuss now. Sorry, that sounds terrible, but you know, we were pretty frustrated and we wanted to change the world, and every once in a while a bad word slips out. So when I'm like going, Brian's bringing kids, everybody else went, oh crap. And so all these districts started bringing in kids, and that was the coolest thing. Took them to Cherry Creek. Cherry Creek brought in a whole bunch of kids. But the magic really happened down at Castleview High School, because Jen set up a whole, when we were down at the high school with Jen Goschak, she set up a whole room for those kids and kind of, you know, gave them some guidance on what to do. And then we, you know, they made it real clear that we weren't invited. Go away, adults. We want to talk. And that's when they created their own Colorado Gifted and Talented Student Board for gifted students. And they have never looked back since then. And they would come to our meetings like on the Fort Collins and those places, but they had their own room. They had their own agenda, and they have been doing their own thing since then. We went in 2019 to 2020. We met down in Colorado Springs, which was super fun. We got to see a whole bunch of cool space stuff that was going on down there, thanks to Michael setting us up. And we started talking about what is it really we wanted to do? You know, here was the adults meeting and talking and trying to change things. And then we had this great student advocacy group, and it became like, what could we really do to make a difference for students? And it became along the lines of like, what if we hosted a gifted and talented secondary student conference led by students? They were hosting some of the sessions, helping plan it, you know, hand in hand with us. And so And we're like, oh, sure, we can make this happen. We're teachers. We can make this happen, right? So we went for it. We had a great conference in Westminster where we really fleshed everything out, and we were prepped and ready to go. And we were supposed to host it on April 25th, and the kids were excited, we were excited, and the world shut down on March 16th. So we have not hosted our conference like we were hoping to do. We didn't try last year, and we're not trying this year because there's just, you know, too much uncertainty with it. But that was our whole goal, is to enable gifted students from around the state to gather in an environment that was safe for them to be gifted. And that was the whole point of being there, is finding some tribe, because some of our smaller school districts, it's hard for them sometimes, even though there may like other 5 or 10 gifted students, it isn't exactly the same tribe, because it may not be the same interests. And so allowing kids to come and have conversations, and our Colorado Student Board group of students was very much outlining the topics that they wanted to talk about. And it was very diverse, and it was fascinating to see what they wanted to talk about. So maybe one day when the world calms down, or we get to a new normal with protocols and large groups again, then we will go for it again. So that is kind of talks about what we did. I am going to now move us down to Connie. Tell me when I'm supposed to stop.
Back up one for me, please. Maybe 2.
Okay.
Okay.
So, and then what we want to do is just let everybody kind of summarize what they've done so that you guys can hear some of the cool things that are going on around the state.
Thank you, Marla. And as Marla said, one of the things that was just such a game changer was getting all of the students together from all over the state and starting to listen to what they said. Some of these things in Jeffco, and I'm not with Jeffco now, but these are some of the things that we'd already started to put in place with Jeffco, and other students were so excited to hear about. One of them was the ALP, the Advanced Learning Plan Specific Advisory Period. And this was when we were in person, but it was a multi-grade course. There were online options, and the important thing was that we had a period in the day, maybe it was an advisory that other students didn't have specifically organized by GT, but the students had some time every day together where we got to, in all of our high schools, where they are getting to discuss with classmates who are like-minded, and maybe share some of the same frustrations. Go ahead to the next slide. It isn't happening in every single high school in Jeffco yet, but it was definitely on the road to a vision. Oh, one more slide. The blue one. Yeah, there we go. And then in terms of the advanced learning plan, which is what every identified gifted learner has in Colorado, we really wanted to put this more and more into the hands of students. And absolutely, that was something that we heard when the students started coming together for these summits that from all over the state. They said, yeah, we want to decide what it is we want to do for our learning goal. We don't want a teacher or a drop-down menu to tell us what it is. We certainly don't mind guidance, but we really want to do our own thing. One of the things that I personally, and this is outside even of Jeffco, is that as much as I can, I encourage teachers throughout the year in all areas, not just specific to the advanced learning plan, but to offer as often as possible in an assignment the words "or another project or topic of your choice," and really allow the learning environment to be something that's creative and innovative and encouraging students to pursue curiosity. Go ahead to the next. Thank you. Another thing, I had an amazing director when I was working in Jeffco. He's still there. I'm not. But Roger Dowd put together our Gifted and Talented Advisory Committee, and that had teachers and students and parents and also alumni. And it was just wonderful to have those groups get together and have conversations about what we could do to best meet the needs of gifted students K-12, not just not just our young'uns. And then the next slide, Marla. And I think this was one of the most exciting things that happened in Jeffco last year. From my perspective, we actually brought in a team of student presenters for our GT Mental Health Day for a professional development district-wide, and allowed, they were all students who experienced some part of the spectrum of autism, and were twice exceptional, and they instructed the teachers in the district about their needs and what fits their needs best. So that was a super exciting day. And those are the kind of things that I took away from GT2 Summit.
Unmute. You know, it's tonight. One of the most powerful things that Jeffco is doing right now is this GT Mental Health Day run by our SELCs, our social emotional learning specialists in GT, because at the secondary level, not all of our counselors get training on gifted students. And so this has become highly valued and very well attended in Jeffco. And yeah, it's been wonky because we used to be in person and people could move around and have conversations, and now they've moved it online. And in some respects, we've had more attendance because people go to, you know, Jeffco is very large. And so now people don't have to drive down from the mountains or, you know, up in to get to the Ed Center. And so this is, a lot of the topics on this one are also secondary topics. And so we are having more and more high school counselors come into this to, you know, drop in and learn some more of the needs, mental health needs of our gifted students. So that's been also one of the coolest things that's been going on in Jeffco. Okay, so who do I have next? It's
going to be me because Michael's not here, but yep. I encourage our folks to go to the bit.ly that was posted in the Facebook group to look at the slides from Cherry Creek because they're really cool. So my slides start on next one, I think is Douglas County, Marla, 28. Yep, there we are. Thank you so much. So hi, I am Jennifer Gottstruck, and I am so proud to be working with our Douglas County schools. As Marla said, it was a magical day at Castleview High School when the students just sort of actualized and, you know, became their student board. So this is just, if you're not sure where Douglas County is, this is where we are. Go ahead to the next slide, Marla. And here's our data. So one of the things that's interesting is that our percentage of identified gifted students continues to increase. So at the beginning of this school year, we were sitting at close to 7,000 identified gifted learners, but well over half of those are in secondary. So Marla, if you go to the next slide. So I use a lot of photos from Unsplash, and this was really us, just like Marla said. So we would go to CAGT, I would go to CAGT and I'd be like, I just need to talk to the other middle school and high school people. And there weren't sessions. And so we'd end up talking in the hall or, you know, missing a keynote so we could just talk to each other. So really the desperate need is not an exaggeration. And when we went to that first meeting at CAGT, it was so good that we just knew that we needed more. So you go to the next one, friend. So I'm just going to just quick highlight some of the work we've been doing since then in our own district. So along with now Dr. Ryan McClintock, we did a Smartshaming mini study, and our end size was, gosh, I'm going to forget now, but I want to say we had about 300 student responses and about 100 teacher respondents, which is pretty good for the beginning of the year. And we certainly talked about replicating this work, but it was really curious, the disconnect between student perception of how they were invited to be curious, to have their own agency in their learning versus teacher perception. So Marla, we're going to skip those slides just for the sake of time. And if you would go to the slide with the cactuses on it, with the cacti, here we go. So that initial learning we got from our Smartshaming study led us to want to do some more work around the instructional coaching work that is happening in our high schools. This whole session was for CAGT, and the whole thing is cacti because high school people, if you don't know, are kind of proud about how prickly they are and difficult. And like you ask them, see Marla's smiling right now, people are like, yep, that's me. I'm not the nicest person and I'm okay with that. But once you get to know them, you know, I think of it like going to New York. They're wonderful, lovely, incredible advocates, but there's this kind of hands-off feeling you get versus elementary folks. And I think, honestly, I'm just going to say it, Marla, I think it's because we just have not had our needs met. And so we're just a little disgruntled. So you go to the next slide, please. So what we did was Ryan and I designed a sort of an ideal state for student outcomes and teacher outputs. And we had one for academic and also for affective. We really believe that when all these conditions are in place, we will see increased academic growth and engagement from our students. We'll see behavior that is contributing to the greater good. And that we'll see even more extraordinary outliers than we see now. It'll maybe feel more like systemic rather than luck. We'd love to see more clubs for more interest and affiliations. We'd love to see more enrichment extension in our courses. And we'd love to see our AP scores, our AP student participation be more proportional to our demographic data. And we'd love to see more IB diplomas earned. If you go to the next slide, it talks about our affective ideal state, which is really all the things that we think about when we think about how a gifted student becomes a gifted adult, right? That all of these things, their creativity, their leadership, their agency and advocacy increase. And then from an affective response side, we love to have people who think of themselves as first responders for mental health needs, who are also treating the needs of gifted students. Marla, if you go to the next one, I think that's just about done with me. Right, so what we've been working on since quarantine, as Marla was saying, is that we have really started to do a radical revision of how programming looks in our high schools, including, and thanks to the amazing advocacy of our director in Douglas County, Natasha Strayer, we now have a 0.5 FTE in every high school. 8 of our 9 offer clustered advisement, which is something that Connie talked about for Jeffco. And then all of our students are enrolled in a Canvas course. Canvas is just our learning management system, where we're giving them content about what it means to be gifted, about how they can use their advanced learning plans to move their own goals forward. And some of the topics that are always a part of gifted ed, but specifically tailored to how a high school student might experience perfectionism, or what high stakes tests mean when you're in high school and you're trying to get into your top colleges. And then we're doing a lot of work around post-secondary options. So all the work through GT2 has led to changes in our district. And as our parents and students and our fellow educators are listening, that's really, I think what Marla said is that's just our hope for you, is that the changes that we've experienced through our collaboration, that you take these ideas and think about, well, how might that work in my building or my district or the school that I'm going to go to next year. You know, all these things are available. They've been done by human beings and they can be done by you. So thank you.
Yeah, Jen and Ryan's work around Smartshaming, that whole piece, you guys, is fascinating. And I would love at some point in time to figure out how we could take that to scale to the state, because what those kids have to say is so profound, so profound.
I agree.
Okay,
Marla.
so
student voice is the way to do this.
Yeah, and the questions you crafted were for fantastic. Okay, so I got to remember who I'm going to next. Oh, Shelly and Jason, are you guys up and ready?
We are up and ready.
Okay.
Dr. Clark, you want to go first and maybe hit those 2 slides we like to go with?
Yeah, perfect. This one works. So what we have at Fort Collins High School is we have a cohort model, kind of a school within a school. So at Fort Collins High, we have a homeroom class that every first semester freshman is enrolled in. And what we do is we take GT identified students and we put them in a GT homeroom class. And so what that does is it gives us the ability to have those students do some advanced projects, learn some group work, do some effective kind of emotional needs types of activities. And then from that entire group of all the GT students at Fort Collins High School, we recruit students to continue on into a 4-year program. So if you don't mind, next slide.
Yeah, we can go to the next slide too, I think.
That one.
Maybe a couple, maybe another one.
Yeah, maybe one more even.
There you go.
What I was thinking of. Okay, so that what I was talking about there down on the bottom is year 1, GT Lambkin Way. We have 4 C's focus. They collaborate, communicate, they develop critical thinking, and then we have challenging creative skills. So the students who decide to move on to year 2 then, which is usually a slightly smaller cohort, engage in leadership activities. They develop we walk them through activities in terms of career planning, what sorts of things they want to do with their future, how to actualize their kind of leadership skills. And then from there, we recruit them into year 3, which is the junior and senior research colloquium. And this is actually a 2-year research program where we take these highly motivated, gifted, and talented students, and they conduct an actual empirical research study. It's actually modeled after my own experience of going through a PhD program and writing my dissertation. And it really is that exact same process. We have them write a review of literature, identify a gap in the literature. They write original, genuine research questions. They develop a methodology in order to find the answer to those questions. They recruit human subjects and then conduct studies, observations, experiments, surveys on those human subjects in order to find answers to their questions. Then once they have the answers, they write up their conclusions. And then the next step is to share those out. And so we have our gifted and talented students presenting to the GT Lambkin Way, presenting to the sophomores, presenting to groups of administrators and parents, that sort of thing. And so it really is designed to kind of create a mini master's thesis or even a mini PhD, kind of a dissertation original research program that we lead them through in those 2 years. The students can earn English credit for completing the program. And then the other thing, if you want to switch to the next slide. And Shelley, you want to talk about this part?
Yeah, sure. So we've been developing this program since around, well, almost 10 years, 2011. We started with the freshman Lambkin Way class for a few years, then added the sophomore, and then the junior senior together. So about 5 years ago, we talked to the curriculum director about adding a GT endorsement to our diploma. So we were able to do that, which the kids really appreciate. We have cords that they can wear. They used to wear them at graduation. Now with COVID and some of those restrictions, but we still have a ceremony where they get certificates with their accomplishment, their cords, the endorsement on the diploma, which is big. And they do have Honors Academy notification on their transcripts. So that's a big ceremony for them. And they look forward to that piece of it. We have a video that you can watch at some point, maybe clip there with Emily Wynn, which was one of Dr. Clark's first students in the program. I don't know, Dr. Clark, do you have anything you want to say about that? About Emily's program?
Well, if you do get a chance to watch it, it's just really powerful. I mean, we were just talking about how important it is to get student voices in. Whenever we do a presentation like this, whether it's at a conference or something like this, I'm always like, how do we get student voices involved? You know, and so whether that's pre-COVID, we would bring the kids in and have them present at the conference and share their experience. And in this case, you can see Emily Wynn talking about, she did a great job. She really wrote a fantastic research study. And then she got an internship in college as a freshman, as a college freshman. And by her sophomore year has a paid internship in or working for a research company. And I mean, she straight up says the way she got the gig is talking about her experience conducting a human subjects research study in our GT research program. So it's really, it's pretty cool stuff if you get a chance to listen.
Thank you.
So I think one of the coolest things about the Fort Collins experience, and when we got to go up there, lots of people joined us, and they have a connection with CSU. And so CSU pre-teachers came into the room and listened to all these presentations from kids and stuff like that. And that's been one of the cool things as we've moved around the state to see, you know, different buildings and different programs and different access to other folks. Because a lot of Fort Collins people also came in to hear what was going on with these students, and they had a student panel up and stuff. But I think besides that, the fact that they were able to advocate to get that GT endorsement onto a transcript was pretty powerful. And I mean, these kids are doing a ton of work, don't get me wrong. But that the fact that, you know, Fort Collins recognized that and realized that, yeah, these kids should be honored in a different way. And Shelley's, all of her work to, you know, show that, you know, the kids do deserve this because they have gone above and beyond the normal high school experience. So I think that's really powerful about what Fort Collins has acknowledged in their student body, that these kids really have done more and therefore they should get this recognition. Okay, I got to speed us along here. So I think, Michael, are you next? Michael,
I believe so. Yes. I'm Michael Chamberlain. I'm down in Colorado Springs, the place that's further south than a lot of other people. And so we're a little bit removed and everything. But we have a draw. We have the Space Foundation Discovery Center. And I made some of these other meetings and I was thinking, hey, guess what? Maybe if we can have this meeting at the Space Foundation, we can get all these people up in the Denver area and Fort Collins and so forth, and move them, 60 miles south down the Front Range, and it worked. And so we were able to have a meeting on November 13th at the Space Foundation, which was pretty cool. And again, I'm from School District 11. In sort of the heart of the city, at Palmer High School, which is like the oldest high school in the city. It's pretty cool. In the 1800s, it was built. So again, we're 60 miles south of Denver. We have the Olympic Training Center, Paralympic Center, Air Force Academy. There's a lot of aerospace, engineering, medical, military for sure as well, and outdoor education for sure. Next slide. The reasons I got a part of this over here was just sort of figuring out what was going on outside Colorado Springs. And I mean, we're kind of isolated. So Denver's sort of the epicenter of things. And I felt kind of, a little bit isolated. And it's like, I knew what was going on in Colorado Springs area, but not so much elsewhere. And so joining this GT group sort of opened my eyes to what was happening. And one of the main things, I was frustrated with the advanced learning plan. I mean, it was one of those things that I think trying to get high school kids to do was a frustration. And it's like, what are other people doing in, outside my district? What are people doing across the state? And so I wanted to find that out. And again, limited gifted research at the high school level. Also, it's one of those things, there's a lot of stuff at the elementary level for what's going on with gifted education, not so much at the high school. And so it's like, am I doing what's good for students? Is there anything else that I can do better? And so I wanted to really know about that. So I wanted that support, and also maybe the validation if what I am doing is really working and being, and it's being supported. So next slide. This is just a thing or two. This is part of the Space Foundation and everything. And so we had the student group, and this is sort of the student room over here. And again, as you see, they're working themselves. We're not there. We're kind of actually outside the window there. We're looking in upon them and going, hey, what are they doing? What are they up to? So that was a big part too. And we certainly had the two separate meetings, the students and then us adults and teachers. So yeah, next slide. So discoveries over here. What did I kind of find out? That the ALP completion is problematic statewide. I mean, there's some really cool things that other districts are doing that are like helping to do that. But I also found out it's like, maybe other people are struggling with this as well. And then the whole, ALP implementation, share what works, people were able to do that. It was fascinating to see what other schools were able to do. Denver Public Schools had a really cool, fantastic thing. Fort Collins for sure. I mean, all these different districts for what was happening there. I also was using Naviance, thinking, hey, if I can make this a requirement that's part of the ICAP, I can maybe get better compliance. So I also got one of the Naviance reps that I was working with, and she actually became quite interested to say, hey, maybe I can discover what's happening across the state of Colorado, and we can discover, hey, we can maybe do something to be able to help you out. So, I mean, she was quite interested in making that work. She attended one of our meetings, and I think ultimately it kind of failed. I mean, I think, Naviance was much more of the counseling type of thing. I think they put their time and effort and money into that, but it was a fascinating, and I think it was a good step in the right direction. The student group is also wonderful. And again, a wonderful discovery that we found out. And found out about GT classes and programming. I mean, what's going on in Fort Collins is like, holy cow, really? And then field trips over Elizabeth and everything, and for what they're able to do. That school, I mean, it was just amazing. So, and then also discovered some of the things that I'm working on in my district and everything. So the justification for what am I doing? It is working. These are some things that are common across all the schools and across the state. And so that was wonderful. So again, the conference aimed at our needs. I mean, having the college colleagues as resources is huge. I mean, we can be able to share and help out one another. And again, I mean, there isn't a whole lot of information at the secondary level for gifted resource teachers. And so having that support is really good. And then also, I think we do know a few things of what's happening and what works for our students. And I think we can be able to be, this is something maybe going forward more than take a look back, of having some influence of what goes on at the state. I mean, maybe we can influence some of the decisions made, for instance, even how the ALP, for instance, is done, and then other help that we can do. So sort of going forward, I'm hoping that this is a direction that we can be able to explore. I mean, we're a group of experts in this field at the secondary level. And if we can be able to pull us together, be a unified force, we can be able to make, things work out better at the state level and be able to, in that sense, be able to help our gifted students as well.
Yeah, and it was super fun to go down there. We learned a ton about Colorado Springs, and there's some really dynamic gifted adults down in the Colorado Springs area who are doing amazing jobs. And so it was really good for us to step out of the Denver metro area and go to another very vibrant community along the Front Range. So thank you, Michael, for making that happen for all of us at that event.
Yeah.
And so Rachel, am I there? Yes, I think you're up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Stuzman, and I work in Denver Public Schools. I have spent my whole career in Denver Public Schools and have spent the last few years advocating for our secondary GT students. I attended my first GT2 summit with Brian Weaver, and he kind of highlighted what we were doing for ALPs at the time. And little did I know that whatever that idea was for ALPs has now cascaded into some very powerful district conversations around how we serve GT students and some important initiatives. So I'll just quickly highlight kind of three of those. The first thing is that our ALPs weren't happening at the secondary level. And I, as we attended the GT2 summit, realized that was happening statewide. And we developed kind of a badging system that allowed students to access a platform for doing their ALPs district-wide. And then they could create their own goals and make connections with staff in the school community in order to inform their education on the school level. What that ended up doing then was empowering more adults within school buildings to figure out what the needs were for these gifted secondary high school students. And then we started seeing some patterns of engagement needs and connections to their passions. So then COVID hit. And we had to kind of figure out new ways of doing everything. And so one of the things that Greg Moldow, one of our high school GT coordinators in the district, came up with was a curiosity campaign. And this is going on right now too. We've kind of continued it because it was a super powerful way to gather resources from colleges, universities, and experts in the field. And what Greg did was he just created a lineup of virtual experiences for students to sign up and attend and listen to professors, experts in architecture, biochemistry, real estate, like kind of all of those things, to have interactive Q&A sessions, but also some really dynamic educational experiences. What we realized through all of this is that Denver serves a very diverse and unique set of students. And at the most deepest level, we know that we have a distinct population of gifted learners that aren't recognized as often as others. And so our district leaned really hard into the questions of equity and access for our gifted students of color. And we are currently using data to comb through all of our students that have fallen through the cracks. And we've started the Black Excellence Initiative, which is asking administrators and buildings to think hard about the experiences and the perspectives of our gifted students of color. And that is kind of transforming, once again, how we think about how kids access ALP goals, how they write them, and how we provide programming to best serve them. So even though that's a work in progress, what is exciting for me is we've started collecting student stories, especially for our gifted students of color. And we're in the process of developing some asynchronous, we're calling them bite-sized professional development sessions for our high school teachers who don't have a lot of time, who tend to haven't had any experience with PD around gifted ed, and giving them some bite-sized access to student stories, and then using that as a lever for creating some positive change and advocacy in buildings as well. So that kind of highlights what we're doing in DPS. There's a lot more I could talk about. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.
The Curiosity campaign is so brilliant. I mean, I'm just telling you, everything coming out of DPS just amazes me. And I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. Because they're ALPs. We had to have Brian Weaver present like 3 times because what they were doing with their badging system just knocked the socks off of everybody and sent us all in completely different directions of thinking about ALPs. This Curiosity campaign, I wish there was funding or something to scale this up to the state level, because really it makes total sense. We all know how to jump onto a Zoom now. And there are so many experts all over the state that would love to connect with a kid on their passions and topics. And it's once a week. And I mean, how hard is it to send out the Zoom link and kids jump on? And this is, I cannot imagine how cool it would be to talking to some of the people out of the Durango area with some of the stuff that's going on there, or, you know, to North. I mean, this could just, guess I'm saying, CAGT, we would love to have some help to get this to scale up. Oh, that's just Marla's little wish. Sorry. Whatever. And then again, DPS is leading this way on a bunch of the stuff around students of color and helping guide us, the rest of the state around some of this thinking. So yeah, there's just really cool stuff. And I can't be remiss. I gotta go back here and I gotta show you something. Okay, this Colorado Gifted and Talented Student Board is the students. We did ask them to come join us tonight, but they all have other activities tonight. This group of students over the last several years have presented at multiple state and national and international conferences. They have presented at CASB, which is the Colorado State School Board, to really advocate for the needs of gifted students. And a lot of the smaller school districts come in and those school board members are going, oh snap, you're right. This is the original kind of group, and they presented at CAGT. They presented at CAGT a couple times, and now many of these kids have graduated, but they set up a whole system to have more kids join and take over those leadership roles. And so that CGTBS website is on the GT2 website that we have here, so you can easily find them and direct your own students to them if you want. One of the bigger things we also did is across the state, we sent out this survey to kids, and again, different school districts jumped into it. What would you like secondary student, GT secondary people on a professional development, whatever I'm trying to say here. And it's pretty fascinating when you go through it and you read down through what the kids across the state are saying about what's happening to them in their high school experience and what they really want. And so the whole, kind of experiment that we started in 2017 has turned out to be one of the most profound professional experiences I've ever had, and kind of personally too, because high school teachers, we kind of get really siloed. We really much kind of hang out with our content areas. We don't even, necessarily cross the hallway sometimes, or down a different hallway to go talk to other different content areas, just because you have 4 minutes, and your lunchtime is like you're scrambling to do things. So this statewide collaboration has been just so fascinating because we have teachers from all different contents. We have middle school teachers who are coming in because that 12-year-old is different from an 18-year-old. And everybody here is wanting to improve their craft and their programming to meet student needs. And oftentimes anybody who's a GT person, secondary person in a building or in a district, you're often kind of a singleton. And so this has been what's so awesome is that when we come into the room, we are all, there's no negativity around what a gifted student looks like at the secondary level. It is all about being proactive and working together to solve common problems and push forward. There's no, we all agree that there's gifted students at the secondary level. You know, it's just really fun. It's really nice. The people are brilliant. If you have people in your district that need to connect, I mean, we have so many people here who are great professional development folks. I mean, if you guys have never seen Jen Goschak's professional development on writing and nonfiction writing, oh my God, people, she's amazing. You guys need to bring her into your district. Rachel, same thing. Michael, everybody here, they can, you know, and again, sometimes you can't be a sage in your own backyard. You have to bring somebody across a district line, you know, to talk about it. And, you know, it's just, we would love to connect with your secondary educators or your administrators at any time. We're happy to help in any way. And I will stop talking now and let CAGT ask us questions.
Marla, do you want to put it on our contact slide so folks can see our emails while we're answering
questions?
Yes,
that's a good thing.
Sorry, Miranda.
That's fine. It's fine. Let's let you get to that slide. And we don't have a ton of questions because I think there was so much information in your slides that and links, which awesome, right? Like it's great going to presentation, hearing about what some people are doing, then being like, but where's the links? You have them all there. It's super helpful. One of the first questions the first question I had, the Colorado Gifted and Talented Student Board, Marla mentioned in the very introduction. If other kids want to get involved, how can you help us? Tell us how to do that? Do either of you have information?
Yes. Basically, they just need to go to the student website and they have links. They have it all highlighted there. Let's see here.
It is on slide 59, Marla, but Miranda, so yes, and they are accepting applications all the time. So we now have at least, gosh, I think 6 students from Douglas County on that board. And one thing that's really cool, you guys, is that in 2 of our high schools, they're going to be providing, the students have agreed, and they're going to collaborate to provide PD for the teachers. That's going to happen because of this. So yeah, I definitely encourage them to get involved because that is how the ideas pollinate.
And you said that was on the website there.
Yeah, the GT2. So Marla's on slide 59 is where the student board website is.
Yeah, and that's way, way down at the bottom. We have a lot of slides. So it's on our slide presentation, but it's also on our website where you can get to their website. Layers upon layers, essentially.
Okay.
And you can also just, Google Colorado Gifted and Student Talented Student Board, or email one of us and we'll send the information too.
Great. I just put the link in the chat, Miranda,
yeah.
If you want to chat it out to Facebook. So that's the link to the student website. And then on our side, for people who are going back and viewing them, there's a wonderful video that the student board made as well.
Yes, it's fantastic.
Okay. I'm putting it in the Facebook chat as well for anybody who has children who are interested.
And I think, one of the cool things about it is they've kind of found tribe too. They found other young people who are passionate about advocating for a better high school experience for gifted students. Mm-hmm. And it's not just, the large school districts. There are kids from, rural districts on there, and they've had some huge epiphany. It's like, oh, what I have offered in my high school is not what you have offered in your high school. And
yeah,
that's not fair. So yeah, and they're, like I said, they have presented at multiple places, and they are very much advocating for gifted students, and they are powerful. They are a force to be reckoned with, folks. And they make it very clear they do not need adults to help them.
And they sure don't.
No, they don't.
Speaking of location sometimes being a challenge and a barrier and a resource issue, Benjamin asked, he is a full-time instructor, but also is doing GT seminars. And like me and like many other coordinators who are like the only one or one of two or have like hundreds of students on their caseloads, and also maybe wear multiple hats. I know that that's something you mentioned at the very beginning of your presentation, that you want to help support these people. So for one, we did mention that he should reach out directly to whatever program that seemed to entice him to reach out directly to the contact here. But do you have any advice on like where to start? I texted Nanette while we were on here and I said, a lot of resources are wonderful, except for sometimes when you feel like you're never doing enough, you could also make you feel wildly inadequate. So where do you start? I that was a huge question, but any advice?
I think that's where we all were. I mean, in a certain sense, it's like, we're, on that treadmill running as fast as we can and never felt enough. And so I think getting him, connecting with us and creating, like that friendship and that relationship and having that sounding board, because that's kind of what we've become a little bit with each other. To watch Michael Chamberlain and Michael why can't I pronounce his last name?
Mazenko.
We had a great student group come out from St. Vrain and Stargate in Adams 12, come down and present on their medical group that they had put together, a nonprofit organization, and then watch Michael and Michael brainstorm and make all those connections about what they already have in their district. And it's like, oh, it wouldn't take too much to connect all of those kids to this group that's already formed. That's kind of it. It's just, if you can connect with us, and you can. We're going to try to put together some virtuals now, which I should hopefully create our group bigger because people don't have to travel, and find some of these people on here, because that's it. Part of it is mentorship, especially for some of the younger folks that are coming in, because it can be a really lonely job because you're not. So
Marla, I'm going to go the other direction, like from a brass tacks perspective, Miranda. So one of the hacks that we figured out to do was that in every building we can put the identified gifted students into what is like a 0-hour class or like a fake class, so that the GT, so you, Miranda, or Ben, anyone who's like a district coordinator, then can see the GT high school students as a group and communicate with them as a group. So that is actually like through Infinite Campus or Power School, like not that hard to do. And then once you're communicating with them as a group, ask them, what do they want and what do they need? And usually they're going to say some of the stuff that we've been talking about, which to me, that's how you kind of line it through. Or you say, and this is so important because I think for me as a mom and as a teacher, sometimes what I think should be a priority is not. And so that's what you got to ask. Like, what is the next most important thing that you need? So it was actually in Jeffco, a Jeffco student said to me, and it was adorable because he had like rubber bands and a whole lot of braces. And he was like, look, I just want to take Algebra 2. And I had to read the entire law about my ALP to learn that my ALP in math said that I could take Algebra 2. And I was like, right. I bet some of my students would like to know that too. So from a brass tacks perspective, I say connect using whatever learning management system you have, communicate and ask about student priorities, and then go from there. So that's kind of my flip of, if you can't get a hold of one of us, start with your kids. That's like the macro GT strategy, right? Ask the students what they want.
So especially if we're in person too, one of the things Benjamin also asked is about like, how do you get the admin approval to go ahead with some of this stuff, especially maybe if you've struggled with getting what I say, just call access to students. Sometimes it's hard to get access to your own students, even though as a gifted coordinator, you have every right to serve and access these students. Sometimes it is a challenge, and because I'm sure that at some point in your careers, some of you have had an administrator or a schedule situation in which that's been a challenge. how can you go about overcoming that? And maybe how can parents, because we have so many parents on here, how can parents help support that advocacy? Because sometimes a lack of programming is not the coordinator's fault, but because of a lack of access to those students that they're being provided. And so how can parents be an advocate to get programs available or access available at schools where that's been a challenge?
Parents are one of the greatest resources any district can have. And many powerful and amazing things have been happening in Jeffco because of our GT parents advocating for more resources and supports. But they also have to work in conjunction, you know, and understanding there are limitations in schools. So it's like, you know, if parents want something, can you meet with your GT resource, you know, director there, craft a plan, and then present it? Because sometimes, I'm going to be politically correct, which is really, really hard for me. Sometimes our hands are tied as a district employee. However, parents' hands are not tied. And you're welcome to raise them all you want and show up at meetings and really advocate, because our kids are valuable and their needs are valuable. And as an educator, sometimes I can't say that, you know? Absolutely. So parents, get in there.
Absolutely. I've had multiple conversations with parents saying we need parents like you, because sometimes we've done it, we've been told no, and if we push it, it's just going to get us in trouble. So we need parents to come in and be, you know, the backup, right? The person who's helping push the ball over the goal line, you know, metaphorically. So
there's two things that get people's attention: kids and parents. You know, the educators, we say things all the time. We talk to admin, we advocate. It's very easy for them to just shut us down, turn us away, you know, but really the parents and the students are the customers. If you're talking to people at the administrative level, people who are making these types of decisions in terms of how these sections get made. I mean, the first step for our program was just taking over those homeroom classes. You know, we had to kind of use the existing infrastructure. We couldn't, you know, invent something new from scratch. It was like, well, we've got these homerooms. What if could we just put all the GT kids in one homeroom? And it's like, yeah, okay, we could do that. And honestly, that was the first step, you know? So it's taking it in small steps. It's getting the kids' voices, getting the parents' voices on board and saying, this is the programming we want. Our kids are special needs. They need this support system. And yeah, parents, absolutely. Get out there, talk to admin, advocate for us. And it really helps us as the educators to get this stuff done.
Jason, literally while you were saying that, a parent was saying, I would love to have the Fort Collins High School program, like something like that at a middle school in my district. And is it feasible to get exactly what you were saying, just that homeroom, sometimes just having a point of connection, a free study period, a time where they could all get together. She said, could I make this happen as a parent? Can I make this happen in the next 6 to 9 months?
Yes, but, and this is, let's just be real practical about what the resistance you're going to receive. A lot of times, advisory classrooms are set up along the alphabet, grade and alphabet. Because why? It makes it really, really, really easy to find them during that time period to pull them for X, Y, and Z. So you're going to get resistance because it messes up the ability to find them quickly by grade or by alphabet. So just heads up, that is what we have all faced and had the pushback on, and our mouths just kind of drop open and go, really? What?
Uh-huh. And I think having more than one parent go to an admin or write a letter or something is 100% much more effective than one parent, multiple parents.
I would agree. I mean, you know, I'll second or third or fourth that and everything. Really, parents are you know, administration does and has to listen to parents ultimately. So, I mean, you know, the more parents get involved, more parents advocate for something, then eventually something will happen. I mean, in the time frame that you mentioned about, hey, six months, that's pretty quick. So hard to say, but it depends how many parents get involved and support that. Maybe so, but really, it's about parents are the fastest way to be able to get things changed and moved in the right direction.
So I think Go ahead.
One of the things to really understand is that, again, there's not a lot of training at the secondary level around gifted students. And it just is what it is. But one of the things to understand is that talking about gifted programming and stuff like that, that's a very proactive conversation. Because when you start grouping your kids into these advisory groups and stuff like that, you start to watch on the other side how work reduces for teachers. And that's how you advocate. Show up with brownies, show up with coffee, show up nice, play nice. But trying to say, by doing this, you are going to reduce the workload of your staff, because I'm not going to be emailing you all the time, or, all those all the positives. Show up with the positives, because right now, administrators everywhere are exhausted. Mm-hmm. They're just, and they can't go into that big picture thinking because they are just struggling to deal with whatever COVID restriction or whatever's coming through today. And they're exhausted. They're really struggling, folks. And so by coming up as a proactive conversation and how this will reduce workload, their eyes will kind of light up and they'll go, what? And so that's the approach to take as an advocate who's going to play nice with you to help solve some problems that you have.
And I think because we have to wrap it up, we're going over time, and that's fine. I feel like we could probably be on a lot longer. I want to make sure that everybody knows they can reach out to you, that will have the access to this slide deck on coloradogifted.org under our conversations with CAGT link. We will have this uploaded soon. We'll have access to the slides. They can contact you and email you simply by going to the school district website and searching your name. They should be able to find your email addresses. I think we also need to shout out to CAGT and the affiliate program. So parents, if you're on here and you are not a member of the CAGT affiliate for your district or region, that is a great place to connect with parents who can come into the board meetings and the admins and write the letters and send the emails with you in order to advocate for these programs for our secondary students. So connect with those parents as well. That information is also on our website. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here tonight and sharing such great ideas. I am going to have to take some time and go back and reflect on some of these slides and your resources and your website, and put a bug in a couple of my student ears to apply for that student board. So next week we have Susan Asseline, who's going to be talking about the why, who, and how of academic acceleration. Cool. So it's going to be a goodie. She is a leader in acceleration research and advocacy in the country. And we are so excited to be hosting her next week. So folks, make sure you tune in then. And thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you to the whole panel for spending an hour and a half with me this evening. And hopefully you'll have lots of people contacting you and seeking you out for resources.
Thank you for inviting us. We've enjoyed it, and we're always happy to have conversations around secondary gifted kids. So thank you guys all, and parents, thank you all for all that you're doing for your students and our students as you advocate for them across the state. Thank you.
Have a great night.